In this video, we're going to look at the Ethernet protocol of transmitting data over a network and something called CSMA CD, which is a method of ensuring that messages get transferred without collisions. So let's start by looking at what is Ethernet. So it's just a protocol that's designed for use primarily on LANs. It's got 5 standards, and these have evolved over the years. The 5 standards are traditional, or the first version. Then there was fast Ethernet, gigabit Ethernet, 10 gigabit Ethernet, and 100 gigabit Ethernet. And they are gradually increasing in transfer speed. So how does Ethernet transfer data? Well, if you remember the TCP/IP model, as we get down lower and lower, there's more and more wrapping put around the data that we're trying to transfer. And at the very bottom layer, the link or network layer, if we're transferring over Ethernet, we are using frames. And a frame is made up as a sort of block of data as follows. The first part we don't need to go into very much, just to say it's the frame header or the preamble. It is used by the frame to basically put it back together again at the other side. The next 2 parts of the frame are really important. First of all, it's the destination address, i.e. where this frame is going, and the source address, i.e. where the frame is coming from. Now, this is the physical address, which I described in another lesson as a MAC address. It's basically hexadecimal notation. An example of this would be these example physical addresses. Now, these 2 addresses can be guaranteed to be unique because 48 bits are being used for each of the destination and source addresses. And that's a lot of addresses. Then we've got the type or the length of the frame, which we don't need to know about for this course. Then we've got the data that we're transferring across Ethernet. And at the very end, we've got some error checking. So it's, in Ethernet, it's called a frame check sequence, or a CRC. Now, the way that each frame is transmitted or across the network, and if we think about a standard LAN as being a star topology, the bit in the middle, or the node in the middle, if we say that that's where it's coming from, okay, this frame would not be directed to one of the client nodes on the outside of the star. The Ethernet frame is broadcast to all 5 of the clients. And this can cause a problem, because what if another computer, let's say this node on the left here, is trying to transmit data back at the same time? You get this collision. So what we're going to do is I'm going to introduce on the next page something that we can do to prevent these collisions. So this idea of Ethernet CSMA CD is a strategy for preventing collisions, and what this does is it controls the access to the transmission channels. And so CSMA CD stands for Carrier Sense Multiple Access with Collision Detection. And what this means in practice is if we think about our sort of simple standard star topology from the last slide, we've got our 6 nodes all connected together. And when the central node decides to send a frame across Ethernet, it broadcasts it out to all the attached nodes. And that's fine, but if the red node, which I'm going to do the top left one here, if it decides to send a packet, then with CSMA CD, what happens is it looks for some voltage on the line. So if there's a packet being sent, there's a voltage on the line. And if this happens, then the red node knows that it cannot send at this point. After a certain period of time has elapsed, then CSMA CD checks again, and if the line is clear, or the channel is clear between the red node and its other connected nodes, then it can send the message out. Now, of course, there might be a chance of the red and the yellow nodes sending a packet, a frame at exactly the same time, in which case you've got to build in some contingencies so that if a collision is detected, the transmission is discontinued, and then again you wait for a period of time, you check that the line is clear, then you try transmitting again. The rules I scribbled out on the left there in white are just a guide. They're you don't need to learn these, but it just shows that if you think about whether there's traffic on the channel, and you can go one of two ways, and then you check if there's a collision while you're broadcasting. That's the important thing. However, remember, this is just for standard Ethernet only, because obviously when we moved away from standard Ethernet to fast gigabit, 10 gigabit, so on, we started using a switched method of transmitting data as opposed to the broadcast method that you see here. And because switched methods are much more clever about where they're sending packets, CSMA CD is no longer required over Ethernet.